Hi, Andy Nelson. Today I want to talk about the scope of trademark rights. That is, if I adopt a trademark, a symbol of my brand that connects me to consumers, what's the true scope of my rights? How far do my trademark rights expand or extend rather? And it's really a kind of a two-pronged analysis. One, there's a geographical element to it, and two, there's a products or services element, the scope of services really, or scope of products element to it. Put simply, if I adopt Michelin for my tires, do I get Michelin for every conceivable thing I might ever want to sell? And I think intuitively, we probably know the answer is no on something like that. So let's start with the first part, the geographical part. If I adopt a trademark to sell my auto repair services, call it Manny's or auto repair services in town here. Do I own that trademark across the entire country? I think most of you would probably intuitively say that doesn't sound right. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If I am not operating an auto repair service in 3-4 states away, why should I prevent someone else from using that same trademark for their auto repair services or something similar even? That would otherwise be confusing if we're right next door or in the same town, but if we're a few states away, should I be able to prevent somebody else from doing that? Generally speaking, the answer is going to be no. My rights probably don't extend that far. They probably extend in my town, maybe in the natural zone of expansion, maybe to the neighboring town, county. What's my history? Have I expanded before? What's the scope and size of my business? What am I likely to do? But think about it that way. It's likely kind of a common sense zone of expansion, so to speak, is kind of probably where my rights really extend, unless I go so far as to, one, actually I have a nationwide or a larger business where I cover a larger area, and there's a lot of regional businesses that do that, or I have a federal registration, which gives me kind of a nationwide presumption to begin with if I take that step. To get a federal registration. And there's a great example that many people have heard of. It's been in not just legal news, but it's been in popular news before, which is the Burger King example. There is a Burger King, a small Burger King chain, I think just 2 or 3 locations in a Midwest state that predated the Burger King that most of us all know. But that small group of restaurants didn't expand further years ago, did not obtain a federal registration, and kind of got surrounded by this other Burger King that came on the scene later, the one that we all know. So that's one small example there. That's the geographic kind of limits on your trademark rights. The second part is really, for what goods or services do I own my mark in? Do I own it for everything under the sun I might conceive of? No. If I establish trademark rights by using it in connection with goods or services, that's where I have my trademark ownership. If I'm Michelin, I have it for tires and perhaps some related products. What's complementary to that? Do I really own it in some complementary areas? Maybe, or at least have the ability to prohibit others from using Michelin in areas that might be a natural space for me to expand in. So Michelin shocks, right? Or Michelin absorbers. If that's a different company, I probably have good grounds to, even if I'm not offering those products, to probably say, hey, that nonetheless would create consumer confusion or is likely to. And so it infringes, that use by someone else of Michelin would infringe upon my trademark rights, again, which has only been used with tires, for example, but still infringes because just because of the complementary nature of the product. So I sort of have, I wouldn't say I have rights over those other areas, but it still probably creates a problem when somebody uses the mark in that way. So anyway, think about it, your trademark rights as you're looking. If you want to understand how broad they are, think geography, but also think scope of products or services. What am I doing now, and what may I have coverage over in complementary areas or areas where I might expand. Anyway, that's it for today. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to talk further. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye.